Welcome to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. The only podcast where it's okay to talk in band. On this podcast, you will be able to hear conversations with some of the greatest names in wind band conducting, composing, and arranging. We'll also visit with great college, high school, middle school, and elementary band directors to get their thoughts on various aspects of being a band director. We'll have regular check-ins with instrument specialists, music dealers, and instrument repair professionals. And if that's not enough, we'll even have regular conversations with Dr. Tim, who will help keep us motivated. That's Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. And now, here's Charlie.
Welcome to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends, and this, our 25th podcast episode. And I am honored that you have given up the most important thing in your life, your time, to join us for two wonderful conversations that we are having today. Well, it's back to school season for our teachers. And regardless of whether you're teaching in person, teaching virtually, or having some sort of hybrid schedule, I wish you nothing but the best. You know, regardless if that student is sitting next to you in person or at the other end of a computer screen, the most important person in that equation is you. Oh yes, we focus our energies and attention on our students, but the most important person in that relationship is you. And why are you the most important? Because you are the only person that you can control. You're in charge of your attitude, and you are in charge of the approach you take with your students. It will be you, and not your students, who will determine whether they, your students, receive a positive musical experience. And it all begins with your approach, your attitude, having a can-do attitude. And if you want to hear what a positive, can-do attitude sounds like, well, I want you to give a listen to both of our conversations today.
Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends is made possible through the support of Hal Leonard, publisher of the Essential Elements Method for Band. Advantage Network Percussion, where you only get the advantage if you're part of the network. ThePodcastingStore.com, your one-stop shop for the finest in podcasting and virtual learning gear. And Vandercook College of Music, home of the Mecca Continuing Education Program, where you'll find an online class for your every need.
We begin with a young man who sent me a beautiful email about the podcast and suggested some people for me to interview. I reached out to him, and he immediately got back with me, and we had a great conversation. I read it in his email, and when we spoke on the phone, I could hear it in his voice. This guy was someone special, someone who my listeners needed to hear. He is Cornelius Young, a young man who grew up in Mississippi and now teaches at Green Hedges School in Vienna, Virginia. Green Hedges is a private school where every student takes band. Band at Green Hedges is not an elective. It is a core subject. But the important thing in this conversation is Cornelius's spirit. His attitude. You can hear the energy in his voice. You can hear a young man who, thanks to his godmother, who got him a piano and paid for his lessons, grew up loving music. And now he is dedicated to teaching kids to love band. You can't help but enjoy this conversation. And following Cornelius, and speaking of a man with a positive can-do attitude, we have Dr. Richard Miles. Dr. Miles, although retired from the director of band's position at Morehead State University in Kentucky, this son of a minister is still preaching the importance of band and music education. Richard headed up the Teaching Music Through Performance and Band series, of which there is now 12 volumes. He is a wealth of knowledge and a source of inspiration. I worked closely with Richard throughout my tenure at both the high school and college levels, and he always provided me with great information and great inspiration. He was a beacon of light that could always shine on the positive, on what could be. And today, he is going to share some of that light with you. So that's Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. We'll be right back.
ThePodcastingStore.com is your one-stop shop for the finest in podcasting, remote and virtual teaching, and amplification tools. ThePodcastingStore.com features leading brands like Audio-Technica, Heil microphones and headphones, Rolls Electronics, Rode microphones, PreSonus, Yamaha, Focusrite interfaces, Roland, and Blue Yeti. With a product mix compiled by experienced educators and podcasters, ThePodcastingStore.com focuses on providing products that assist you in more clearly communicating your message to your audience, whether you're an educator, podcaster, or hobbyist. ThePodcastingStore.com. Visit them soon.
Well, on Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends, I get the opportunity to hear from our listeners, and I try to respond to every one of them. And in some cases, we end up having this wonderful conversation. And this is the case with our next guest. We had a great conversation. He sent me this beautiful email, had a lot of wonderful thoughts in it and suggestions, and I knew that he wasn't just your ordinary band director. So we started communicating, and I asked him if he would be kind enough to join us for the podcast, and he certainly agreed. And it's a great pleasure to welcome my new friend to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends, Cornelius Young. Cornelius, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. I'm happy to be here.
You grew up in Mississippi, but now you're teaching in Virginia. So, and you said, we talked and you said you started playing piano really early, or I guess maybe 7th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade or something. So tell everybody about your earliest exposure to music. When did music first get introduced you can remember in your life?
Well, I would say probably my mother. So just growing up, my mother would be working around the house. She was usually singing some song off the radio. I distinctly remember her singing the Isley Brothers. And so she would usually be singing, I think it was called For the Love of You. And and so usually if something else came on the radio, she would like grab me and say, hey, let's dance or let's do something. And then also church, just going to church and, seeing the musicians play, and that got me very excited, and so I would say those were my earliest, memories.
So you played piano, but what was your major band instrument, and what grade did you start playing that?
So I actually started playing piano and tuba at the same time. I started in 7th grade. And so the school that I went to Clinton Public Schools in Mississippi. They didn't start band in 6th grade like most school districts in Mississippi did. And so when I started, I started with about 120 other kids, and I actually wanted to play drums, but, as the fates had it, I ended up playing tuba. And then on top of that, my godmother, she asked me if I wanted to take piano lessons and she would pay for it. And I was like, sure, I'll do it. And probably one of the best gifts that's ever been offered to me was, her paying for those piano lessons. So
that's pretty cool. So,
yeah.
Everybody wanted to be a drummer. I mean, I wanted to be a drummer. I ended up being a trumpet player. You want to be a drummer, you end up being a tuba player, right? But talk about those school band experiences. What was like playing in band, playing tuba from the back of the room? Tell me about those.
Yeah. At Clinton, they started all the brass kids in one class, all the woodwinds in another class, all the percussion in one class. And so because it was a large beginning band class, I would say I was probably one of 50, maybe even 60 kids.
Wow.
And when I started, it was 3 other tuba players that were playing, and we would have chair tests every couple of weeks. And it was usually between myself and another classmate, Fred Gunn. And, we were usually going back and forth between first chair. And so I got very competitive, and because of the competitiveness, I got pretty good. I'm not going to say great, but I got pretty good. And just from there, the way everything was set up, once I got into 9th grade, I still wasn't technically in high school. Our school district, was what they would do is they would have a separate junior high. And so you still weren't marching with the marching band at the high school, but you were still in this learning phase. And they kind of helped us get a third year in. And so at that point, I was, doing honor band auditions and, different things that they would have around school, and just really enjoyed it. By the time I got to high school, I was doing marching band. I was also doing concert band. I also did the jazz band, and that's where the piano skills came in handy. And yeah, I just, I think about those years and I just love everything I got to do, including, whether it's a marching band contest or, playing 2 or 3 concerts a year, or, doing things with the jazz band. I mean, it was just so many things.
So, talk a little bit about your band directors. Who are they, and because they obviously had a great impact on you.
Oh yeah, I can tell you about each one. So when I started in 7th grade, Cindy Hampton was the main band director at Clinton Junior High. But all the band directors that also worked at the high school came in. So it was a group effort. So at the time I had Cindy Hampton, Mac Dees, Andy Sanders, and Greg Tyson. And then when I got to high school, Mr. Sanders and Mr. Dees moved on to other positions, and Clay Whittington and James Sills came in. And I'm actually still, very good friends with those 2 gentlemen today. And, I just learned a lot. I learned a lot about hard work, learned about doing the things that, you don't necessarily want to do just to make things happen. And, it's been great. And all those guys, as well as Miss Hampton, they were all wonderful teachers.
So when did that light bulb come on that says, I want to be a band director? I want to be one of those guys.
At that time in my life, I would say about 9th grade. I didn't have a whole lot of other things going for me. I didn't particularly enjoy school as much, but the one thing that I looked forward to was band class. And, it finally clicked in my head, hey, this is something you can do for a living. And the moment it clicked, I can describe it fairly well. I was actually helping a French horn player. So I'm a tuba player helping a French horn player. And, I didn't know any of her fingerings, and I certainly couldn't play her instrument, but I knew treble clef from my piano experience, and I felt pretty comfortable with rhythm. And I was like, man, I really like doing this. I really like helping. And so, from there, I kind of had in my mind, like, this is something I want to do.
I hear that so much from people that, like, band and music was the reason you went to school, because that was the thing that drove you. And you're just another one of those cases where you say that, that's the power of music is just so amazing. So you go on to the University of Southern Mississippi. So what's your fondest memory of your time there?
Oh man. Well, before I go into Southern Miss, so there were 2 years that I actually went to Southwest Mississippi Community College, and I enjoyed my time there. And then I went to Southern Miss. I have so many memories of Southern Miss from doing the Eagle Walk, which the Eagle Walk was when we would walk under a part of the stadium. We called the stadium the Rock. And what the band would do is we would march in parade formation. And then by the time we got to this part of the stadium where it was kind of a tunnel, we would split in 2, and the football team would walk through us while we were playing the fight song and all the different cheer songs and stuff like that. And that was really exciting, because not only were you seeing the current football players, but then you would look up above the tunnel and there were different football players who had played before, like Brett Favre, Jerry Rice, and quite a few others. And it was just amazing to be able to see that happen. Obviously all the different concerts, I watched Dr. Skillo and the Wind Ensemble. I was never in his Wind Ensemble, but, I get to see them, in performance, and also to sit and watch rehearsals, as well as with the symphonic band and the concert band. Just getting to know Dr. Skillo, Stephen Mosier, Gary Adam. But I would say probably the biggest memory, there was an opportunity where Dr. Mosier had given some undergrads an opportunity to conduct a symphonic band, which was the second band. And myself, as well as about 6 other students, undergrad students, were given this opportunity. We worked up some music, and we were given opportunities to conduct them. So we would do 3 rehearsals and then the concert. And that blew my mind because that was the first time I was ever in front of a group. And the beautiful thing that came out of that was Dr. Moser picked 2 undergrads to go with Dr. Fraschillo to Italy. At the time, Dr. Fraschillo was the secretary of the National Band Association, and he was holding a symposium. And the symposium would be 3 directors who were already in the field. And at the time, that was Mohammed Schumann, Scott Jones, and Scott Casagrande. And I got to go and meet those 3 gentlemen, as well as hang out with the graduate assistants that were already at Southern Miss. And what came of that was we got to see these 3 gentlemen conduct the Italian Army Band in Rome. And, they have a completely, different way of doing things. In fact, if you were to conduct that group, they wouldn't start right with you. They would start like about a beat behind. And so one particular memory that I have, I was sitting with those gentlemen, playing tuba, and Paula Kreider as well as Linda Morehouse were also in the group. And Paula Kreider was getting ready to conduct Lincolnshire Posy with the group. She drops the baton, and I played immediately because that's what I was used to doing. But the rest of the group stopped because they were like, wait a minute, he played immediately. He didn't wait. And I honestly felt like I did something wrong. I was like, did I do something wrong? And they assured me like, you just got to wait 1 beat behind. And I was like, okay. So that was different, and it was fun. Just the entire trip itself was fun.
What a great memory.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I remember that when they did that trip to Italy. That was wonderful. So, speaking of University of Southern Mississippi, I mean, now you're the second most famous person I know that ever came out of there. Everybody knows I live in northern Wisconsin. I'm 100 miles from Green Bay, and of course, Brett Favre, he's like a saint up here. Did you ever have a chance to meet him?
I did not. I did not get a chance to meet him.
Well, it was his loss. I'm going to tell you that right now, Cornelius. I'll bet you he's sitting somewhere going like, gosh, dang, I wish I'd have met Cornelius along the way. He's going to be on a podcast. And okay, so anyhow, you got some great pipes. When we're talking here, I can just hear it in your voice. You got some great pipes. So you've been a singer? Have you done any singing?
So I did a little bit of singing in high school and college, but I didn't exclusively do a lot of singing. But I had some pretty cool opportunities, though.
Explain one of them to us. Well, give me one of those.
So when I was at Southwest Mississippi Community College, what they would do with the music majors, they would require anyone that was majoring in music to not only take lessons on their instrument, but they also had to take voice lessons as well. So, as well as be in the choir. So I got the full gamut of, being in the music department. And one of the things that that Joe Elliott, who was the choir director at the time, had the opportunity to do was he had the opportunity to work with the Mississippi Symphony Orchestra. So what they literally did was they kind of used us as a practice run, I would say, but it was an actual performance. They took the members of the Southwest Mississippi Community Choir, which was the college students as well as members of the community. And we had to learn Beethoven's Choral Fantasy as well as Zadok the Priest. And it's kind of crazy to think about this now even. What had happened literally right after the dress rehearsal, the person who was singing the bass solo for Beethoven's Choral Fantasy got sick and he couldn't do it. And so Mr. Elliott comes up to me and he says, Cornelius, you're going to sing that bass solo. And so here's the music. You got to learn it. You got 2 days to learn it. And I was scared out of my wits. But, everything went well. I can't say that was my best singing because I was so focused on my nerves, but I had that opportunity and it was a wonderful opportunity. It was once in a lifetime opportunity. So it was pretty cool.
That's great. Singing, I think, is just such an important part of being a musician. If you can hear it, you can sing it. And if you can sing it, you can play it. There's a whole thing that goes along with that. So you go on and you do some graduate study at Eastern Michigan University, and then you end up at the Green Hedges School in Vienna, Virginia, which is where you're currently teaching. And this is not just your ordinary corner school. This is a pretty special school you're teaching at. Tell us about what you're doing there. I know you teach band and you also teach some general music, but tell us about the school and how it's structured and all that good stuff.
So the school is it has pre-K 3 up to 8th grade. Uh, the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds as well as kindergarten is classified as Montessori, but the rest of the school from 1st grade up to 8th grade is considered an independent school. And so our school, is very fortunate to, where we've been pretty small to have literally one class per grade. So, there's not, there's, 2 classes for 5th grade or 8 classes for, 6th grade. It's literally one class per grade. If I remember correctly, I think our enrollment was about 140 for the entire school. So it's pretty unique. The thing I think is really unique about it is that, we don't necessarily have electives. We have everyone doing everything. So every student that comes to 4th grade and up, they're in the band. So I get to, start every single student. And, that has its blessings and its challenges. The blessing being that every single student gets to have that exposure. Whereas, a lot of students, when they get to elect the class, well, they don't know what they're missing because they're electing to be somewhere else. So every single student gets to be in band. And, and I do my best to make sure that they, learn their fundamentals and learn, hopefully, to love music. And, just seeing them grow, just even though I've only been there 2 years, just seeing how the students grow and mature before they leave and go somewhere for high school, it's just amazing. And it's a very special school.
Yeah, finally a school where music is a core subject, because every kid, band is a core subject, right? Every kid is playing in the band. How neat is that? That is pretty cool. So I understand that you also do the jazz band there. Is that right? They have a jazz band in 8th grade?
I do. The jazz band is for the middle school students. It's the one class where the kids do get to elect into it. The first year I was there, we had it before school, and then this past year, until the coronavirus hit, we had it during school shortly after lunch. And it's pretty cool to see, one, to find out which kids are really, really digging playing their instruments, but then to just kind of take them to another level and see them rise even further. And that's been pretty awesome. In fact, we had the opportunity to do the Vienna Halloween parade, and they have different divisions and categories. And one category is floats with music. And we actually won first place. So that was really exciting.
I bet you the kids were really excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
So in addition to your work at Green Hedges School, you also have a program called DC's Different Drummers, and you also conduct the Vienna Community Band. So tell us about those two organizations.
Sure. Well, I'll start out with the Vienna Community Band. I've been with them the longest. So I was able to join the Vienna Community Band in 2014. They've been around since, and I hope I get this right, I believe since 1975. And, it's been wonderful going there every Sunday and just working with, people of all ages. I mean, we literally have, players from 18, and then I think the oldest player, if I remember correctly, is if they're not in their late 70s, they're in their 80s. And it's amazing to work with that group because it just really shows the impact of music and shows, how important music is, and then with DC's Different Drummers, I actually joined them as a member in 2013. I was looking for somewhere to play when I first moved to the DMV area. And they had a position open for jazz pianists. So I went for it. And then I stopped going for a while because I had taken a job that kind of took me away from being able to get there every Wednesday night. But looked back into joining, and the director at the time had left and they needed a new director. So I volunteered, put my name in the hat, and got that opportunity. And it's been pretty awesome.
Is that just a percussion ensemble?
Now, DC's Different Drummers is actually kind of like a full program. So first, let me tell you some background. The DC's Different Drummers started in 1980, so about 40 years ago. And they developed into an LGBTQ organization. So the majority of the members that play in DC's Different Drummers are of the LGBTQ community, as well as allies. So it doesn't matter, about your orientation or whatnot, you can join. But we have 3 big ensembles. The one that has the most attendance is the Symphonic Band, which is conducted by Anthony Oakley. And then we also have the marching band, which actually holds the moniker of the organization. So a lot of times if you say DC's different drummers, a lot in the past, people have thought about the marching band, which they will go to different pride parades and things like that. And Charles Roth runs that. I run the jazz band, and it's been awesome the last couple of years. I have some of, the closest friends in that group. We're not just a group of people that get and play together. We'll, go hang out, have a couple of beers, talk about life. And it's been spectacular.
So school's right around the corner. And by the way, that does sound like a fantastic program, and I'm sure it's going to continue to grow, and it's going to be a great experience. And the fact that you're getting a chance to direct the jazz band, man, all that does is keep that jazz piano thing current with you, right? You get to show them a little bit. And are you playing and as well as directing, or?
I don't get to play as much. We had a pianist come in about a year and a half ago, an older gentleman, and he's pretty good. And so I get to stand in front of the band a little bit more. But on occasion, we'll break and have a small combo, and I'll play on that.
That's great. So school's right around the corner. Are you guys going to be face-to-face with your kids, or are you going virtually?
We are going to be face-to-face. Unfortunately, we're not going to have band at the beginning of the year, mainly because we're trying to just make sure that we take every precaution. So I'm going to be teaching a lot of piano class, but I'm hoping throughout that, I can also give them a different experience. And then when we're able to have band again, they can reflect on those new experiences and apply that to their band experience.
So you got a keyboard lab that you're going to be able to use with the students, or are they going to all get keyboards, or?
Well, it's going to be a portable lab. I'm going to be the one transporting the keyboards. So all the students will be in their particular classrooms, and instead of the students traveling from class to class like normal, the teachers are doing the traveling. So in my instance, I'll have about 20 keyboards on a cart, and I'll take it to them, and we'll work and we'll learn about some piano and learn some music theory in a way that we haven't really been able to dig into, and and just keep it rolling, keep it learning, and
Well, hopefully that'll be short-lived, and we can kind of get back to real school and real teaching in a short period of time. But I know just getting to know you for a short period of time, you got this incredible positive can-do attitude, and I know you're going to make the very, very best out of it. I'm sure you are.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the thing about music, even though it's not in the way I would prefer teaching. The thing about teaching a kid to love music is that, once you teach them to love music, they're going to appreciate that for the rest of their lives, and they're going to carry those experiences. So, I while, it's not banned, I do look forward to making sure that they still love music. And then when they can get their instrument, they can carry those experiences and make it even better.
Cornelius, good luck with all this, and keep up the great work. And thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Charlie.
I look forward to meeting you, pal.
I look forward to.
If I were a parent, I would want my children to have Mr. Young as their teacher. You can hear the smile in his voice, that can-do attitude that says it all. He is so appreciative of his past, and it is obvious that he carries on his gratitude in the form of service to his students. With no band to start the year, Cornelius will take his show on the road, a piano cart to every classroom, so that every child can continue to experience the joys of music. Keep up the good work, Cornelius. We need more people just like you. We'll be back with Dr. Richard Miles.
Vandercook College of Music is proud to support Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. Vandercook is the only college in the nation solely devoted to the practical education of the school music teacher. If you have a student who wants to teach music, or if you or someone you know is looking for a great, practical Master of Music education program, then look no further than Vandercook College of Music in Chicago, Illinois. Vandercook also has the largest array of on-campus and online classes in their Mecca continuing education program. For more information, visit vandercook.edu.
Well, we meet people in this business through other people that we know. And this is the case of our next guest. I remember being at a Bands of America Summer Symposium way back when, and I was talking to Bob Buckner, and all of a sudden the name Richard Miles came up, and he said, "Man, you got to meet Richard Miles." He said, "This guy is phenomenal, and he's got a great band program." And he said, "He just does things the right way." And I heard about Richard Miles, and then I had the opportunity, probably the next summer or a summer after, to be judging at the National Cherry Festival Parade in Traverse City, Michigan. And all of a sudden, this band comes in and they start performing. I think they were in a big ballroom or something, but they start performing. And I mean, my God, they blew the roof off the place. And it was none other than the Lafayette Jefferson High School Marching Band and their fine director, Richard Miles. And that was the first time I had the opportunity to hear the band and to kind of meet Richard in passing. And then as time went on, when he ended up going to Morehead State University in '85, it happened to be the same year that I took a job in the Olathe, Kansas area. And all of a sudden, we became great friends. And it's just such an honor to welcome my dear friend Richard Miles to the podcast. Richard, welcome.
Thank you very much.
You know, most of our listeners, Richard, know you from your great work as the compiler and editor of the Teaching Music Through Performance and Band series, or perhaps your work at Morehead State, where you were director of bands. And we're going to get to that in a couple of minutes. But I want to first start out. You grew up in North Carolina and ended up going to Appalachian State, if I'm not mistaken. But talk about those high school and elementary school band days, will you?
Sure. I grew up in Rocky Mount, and my dad was a minister. So about every 4 years, we moved from Rocky Mount to Asheboro to Laurinburg, and I ended up growing up the largest childhood years in Asheville. And my first band director was Jim Stokes in a little town of Laurinburg, North Carolina. And I was the only kid in band, as I recall. And he traveled about 20 miles to come teach me. My influence, of course, was my older brother who played in the United States Navy bands, and he was a terrific trumpet player. He influenced me. So I started on cornet. And then after the first year, we moved to Asheville. And so I don't know how many kids ended up in band at East Laurinburg Elementary School after that, but it was a wonderful, wonderful experience of Jim Stokes, and I still am great appreciative. I moved to Asheville, went to a junior high school there, had Ed Benson and John Lackey, and then I went to high school at Lee H. Edwards High School, which is now Asheville High School, had Patricia Guerin and Ernie Black as band directors. You know, it's really interesting, Charlie, that my influence, 4 of those 5 directors are on the North Carolina Hall of Fame for being great band directors.
Wow.
So to say the least, I had the best of the best, and that just influenced me on a high level.
So you graduated from high school and you head off to Appalachian State. What made you choose that school?
Well, that's a really great question. And of course, in North Carolina, we have wonderful, wonderful colleges and university band programs. I don't know of a single poor one here. They're all outstanding. But I wanted to go to a real strong music education program that would speak to me. I wanted to be drawn and influenced by a really outstanding band director. And I just love the mountains. So Appalachian was a perfect draw because it was a really strong music ed program. And I don't regret a single second of my life in that environment and under those influences. It was spectacular. What a great place.
Who was the band director there then?
Charles Isley. And Charlie Isley came from Tuscola, North Carolina, where he had started in this little mountain village, a massive orchestra and band program. And to this day, he's still so greatly revered. What a great influence. As a matter of fact, Dr. Mangini, Charlie gave me the first experience conducting out of an instrumental conducting class. That really strongly sealed my career as a band director. I conducted Masquerade for Band by Vincent Persichetti, on a concert with Václav Nelibel sitting in the first row. And it was a searing moment in my brain.
That's pretty heavy duty conducting piece for undergrad. He had a lot of faith in you, didn't he?
Yeah, 260 meter changes, as I recall. And I was still learning how to go with 4 and 3. It was pretty great.
So did you go from App State then to your first teaching job?
I did, yeah. I then went to Elkin High School in the foothills of North Carolina. I was there for 4 years. It was a really terrific experience. My student teacher supervisor said, okay, at that time I was referred to as Dick. He says, okay, Dick, here's where you need to go. All you need to do is show up and interview. So I did. I showed up and interviewed. And it was a wonderful learning experience. I started with 27 kids in band. I remember it fondly. I think I had 7 percussionists. I had 1 clarinet who hadn't changed their reed, I think, for a couple of years. I had I had 2 wonderful trombones. I remember it greatly. One didn't have a water key, and the other trombone player sang through his instrument instead of buzzing. Oh, it was great. What a wonderful place to start. But I do remember it took me 1 year to teach fundamentals and get more kids in band. But, we made superior ratings at the State Concert Band Festival for 4 of those, for 3 of the 4 years after my first year of learning how to teach. It was a great place. I loved it. Hey, that's where I met my wife, Melanie.
Was she teaching there?
No, Melanie, we started dating when she was a student at North Carolina State University, but Elkin was her home.
I'll be darned. So what came next then? Did going to the University of Illinois for your master's degree come next, or did the Lafayette Jeff job, or was there something else?
I went to University of Illinois next. I supervised student teachers for the School of Music, and of course I was very active with the band program. And I remember the day that Harry Beejan called me into the office, and he was such a profound individual. One shook under his presence. So I went in shaking in my little chair, and he says, okay, Richard, I want you to be the graduate band assistant next year for the University of Illinois bands. But I said, Dr. Beejan, I just finished my master's degree. He says, it's not a problem. You can just get another one. So I did, and I was the only graduate assistant the next year for he and Gary Smith. What a great experience. So I had 2 years at University of Illinois. Unbelievable experiences. Actually, maybe the first time I really heard what a band should sound like.
I remember talking to Dr. Beejan. You can't call him Harry. You got to call him Dr. Beejan, right? And he said that he used to record every one of his rehearsals. Is that right?
It is true. Yeah, and I got to press the button sometimes, but up in the recording booth, I remember it fondly. Yeah, and my learning experience was taking a set of scores. When I wasn't playing I did get to play in the group one semester, but I remember sitting on the row and on the first row and just having a set of scores and just following along. It just unbelievable experiences. I've never known anyone to know the music, to truly know the music more than he.
So then you went to Lafayette Jeff?
I did. I was at Lafayette for 6 years. What a terrific experience. Worked with Thomas Dick and Al Jones. Al Jones coordinated the jazz program, and Thomas Dick was the orchestra director. We all 3 collectively worked with the band program and had just a wonderful, wonderful experience. I just am so fond of the place to this day, and each of those 2 gentlemen are wonderful, great music educators and the very best in the profession.
So what was the motivation then to take the job or to look for a job at the university level and ending up at Morehead? How did that happen?
Wow, what a question. I just enjoyed my experience. I had a student teacher by the name of Kevin Schessler, who now is, if I recall, still teaching in Indiana. What a terrific gift and talent. And he influenced me so strongly that working with student teachers and thinking of the influence and the material that and the knowledge that they continued to need after that undergraduate degree was really, really huge. And so I became very interested in teacher education in addition to just performance. And so I applied at Morehead State University, not knowing if I would have any opportunity to get the job or even if they would be interested. I went down, interviewed for the job, and on the same day, they offered me the job and I took it. It was amazing.
Well, Morehead State, I mean, had an incredible reputation in music education. They had some wonderful band directors there over the years, but you took it to another level. I mean, you developed an absolutely stellar program there. And I mean, you know, it was a whole new level. And I was honored to have a firsthand view a couple of times when I was asked to be a guest conductor for the band festival that had like 17,000 kids in it. Or you also had a really unique marching band festival where I remember sitting on the roof with Rick Clary, and we were just discussing the bands. There wasn't no numbers, no ratings, no nothing. It was just a critique of, you know, let's talking about what we're seeing, and it was a back and forth. It was just fantastic. So you had this really unique philosophy that I didn't see in other colleges and universities at around the country. What was that compass that you brought with you that you shared and you wanted to get done at Morehead State?
That's a tough one. You know, the band program had a great reputation. Robert Hawkins was there. The ABA member is a great transcriber and arranger for band. Fred Marzan, you might be familiar with the Marzan tuba, was a former director. It went through a period of 4 years with modest growth. And when I started, there were 44 students enrolled in band. And it was only marching band for the first semester. So my goal was recruitment. My goal was to rebuild the program because I had done that in Elkin, I had done that in Lafayette. And so maybe my motivation was to get as many students involved in band, not necessarily music majors, but to get them involved in band. And over a period of those 30 years, you know, we had over 400% growth in the program. And I don't know that there was anything remarkable other than trying different avenues of getting students interested in making music and enjoying music and being a part of their life with this experience.
You know, I was doing some research on you, and not that I needed to, but I just wanted to do, you know, I wanted to look up online. You go online, you can find everything, right? Find out what you had for breakfast. But I came across this quote from one of your students, and I'm going to read it to you. And I don't mean to embarrass you, but I just think it's like amazing. It says, Dr. Miles was one of the most respected professors on campus. There wasn't a day he came to work that he wasn't in a good mood. Every symphony band rehearsal felt like you were going to school in a good way. You would learn everything about all different styles of music. Very meticulous and always striving for perfection. A great example. So, Richard, when you hear that, how does that make you feel?
So very humble. I think someone must be mistaken. I'm only a human being. Those comments are so humbling. Someone must be thinking of somebody else. You know, I immediately think of my dad. Maybe they went to my church and they were thinking of my father, who was always enthusiastic, inspired, and anointed with his sermon deliveries. It must be then. You know, I'm from a family of ministers. Did you know that?
I knew your father was a minister. I didn't realize there was a whole family of ministers.
Everyone in my family's a minister, and I think it rubbed off maybe a little. My mother, my father, my older brother, my younger brother, even my sister-in-law were all ministers, and they used to refer to me as the only heathen. And terrible being around the Thanksgiving dinner and being asked to pray. Man, my prayers were so modest. Thank you for this delicious food, Mom. You know, it's pretty modest. I'm humbled. For me, I've been so strongly influenced by great people like Tim Lotzenheiser, and I remember reading his book about inspiration and enthusiasm. And I think that that inspired and I refer to it in an unusual setting, anointed delivery is something that makes all the difference in effective teaching.
Well, go ahead.
Been my goal.
Say that one more time.
It's always been my goal.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that quote that student wrote about you is the way the profession feels about you. I mean, you have that undying respect of so many people in the business, and if they don't have that respect for you, it's only because they've never had a chance to meet you or be around you. So let's get to the teaching music through performance and band series that you headed up. You mentioned Tim Lotzenheiser, and I talked to Tim this morning before we recorded, and I said, I'm having a conversation with Richard Miles today. And he says, will you be sure to say hello to Richard? He says, I love Richard. And he went on and on. I won't embarrass you with all the good stuff he said. And I said, well, Tim, I said, you were on that teaching music through performance and band series with him. And he says, yeah. He said, I remember we were judging some sort of festival in St. Louis. And he said, I asked Richard if he was ever going to write a book. And he said, Richard said to me, he says, I want to write a definitive book. And I think you did that. But so where did this idea come up to write this teaching music through performance and band series?
That's a tough question. And Dr. Beginning, it's one I get all the time. The concept of the teaching music series was not my idea. It's a compilation of many ideas. We tossed around a lot of ideas. The credit for the series totally 100% goes to Tim Lotzenheiser and Larry Blocker and Ray Kramer and Ed Lisk and Eugene Corporon. Those guys are the masterminds behind the series. I sort of look at myself as being the worker bee. The idea of trying to influence the profession with selecting quality literature and teaching musical concepts in a comprehensive manner was the driving force behind all of it. So we started with the idea of just having one volume that we all would use. The goal was for us to have maybe 500 copies published by Alec Harris at GIA, and we could use the text at Ball State and Morehead State and Indiana and North Texas. And in a period of several years, we would be able to use up and liquidate those 500 copies. So that was the initial idea. The big credit, and Dr. McGee, I'll be very, very honest and direct about this.
Excuse me, Richard, would you call me Charlie, please?
Okay. The real credit goes to the scholarship and the contributions that are in the text. I honestly believe it's one of the largest, most comprehensive collection of scholars contributing to the band movement that I'm aware of. You know that more than 450 individual band scholars have been a part of this series, contributing articles and teacher resource guides for the series. And it's from the profession for the profession. And that's why it has been successful, in my opinion.
And now what, volume 12 is in the works? Is that correct?
Yeah, volume 12 is almost completed right now. There are, the series is divided into different units. There are to be 12 volumes in what we call the main core of the series, which focuses on the concert band. But, we also have, in that concert band core focuses on grades 2 through 6 grade difficulty levels, 100 pieces in each of the volumes. But in addition to that, we have 2 beginning band editions, a middle school edition, and 1,000 solos that are presented with the solos with wind band accompaniment edition. We have a whole edition featuring Carl Chevallard and marches, and we have jazz for beginning ensembles, and we have 2 editions just for advanced jazz band ensembles. In all, Charlie, there are 20 volumes to the band portion of the series. That's not including now the orchestra and the choral spinoffs. So it's been unbelievable when you think of the number of pages of scholarships and contributions. It's unbelievable.
When you first started that first book, I mean, you obviously had no idea of the incredible success and impact the series was going to have, did you?
No, we just wanted to have 100 quality pieces of music that could be presented. We included a historical perspective. So if those persons in the career wanted to focus on a comprehensive approach to teaching wind band literature through all periods and style, we'd have a representation. We'd have a representation of the main core pieces of artistic music. But we wanted, first of all, to have 100 really super quality pieces of music presented and divided into those grade levels. It was amazing to us how successful the series began in the first few days.
Mm. Well, you personally told me this story, but I want you to tell the listeners about how you used to isolate yourself when you were editing the book.
This is an unbelievable story, but it's very, very true. My wife and I had a pontoon boat on Cave Run Lake, which is 4 miles from my home. We had a slip there for the boat, and I would go out with my little laptop, and we would find a secluded place nestled in the hollers of the mountain ranges, and I would work and compile and edit and work on my chapter contribution in the book every single day. And I would work until my laptop would just give out of power. And my reward was, if I could make it to those about 3.5 to 4 hours of power juice, I rewarded myself with 30 minutes of fishing. And I became addicted to fishing because it was such a strong reward. And that's why I live in Stella right now, because of the fishing. And it was remarkable. But my wife would read, and we just had a delightful time. No cell phone service connection, nothing, but total isolation and pleasure and serenity from nature.
I think that's a great story. You know, now I live on a lake, and I've always wanted to, I need to start writing a book. I mean, I've been asked to do a couple things, and I'm looking at my pontoon boat. That's a great idea. Just take that thing out there, drop anchor, and go to work, right?
Absolutely. And leave your cell phone at home. Since Cave Run Lake had no cell phone service, it was the perfect place to be. You go into a new world as well when you do that. You go into not being concerned about other issues or other things that happen in your life. And your brain then can focus on creative ideas and creative thoughts. And your productivity just really zooms, or at least it did for me.
Yeah. I always refer to the cell phone as the electronic ball and chain. It's always with us. Hey, while you were at Morehead, you also served a term as president of the Kentucky Music Educators Association. And, every state has one, and every state has people who are the president. And I've never asked anyone this question, so I'm going to ask you, when someone heads up a state music educator organization, what's their responsibility?
That's a really interesting question. Again, you are a master of mind-boggling questions. When I went to Kentucky, everything was disjunct. The choral folks did their own thing. The general music people did their own thing. The band guys did their own thing. The orchestra people did their own thing. There was no unity in our association. So the goal of my administration, and we had the first full-time executive director, Robert Hartwell, in the state, the goal was to unify everyone so that we all had cooperation of each other's activities. We all respected each other's activities, and we all worked to unify together to teach as many children as possible. So I think that should be the goal of everyone in an administrative capacity in their state. And that is to work for more unity and more cooperation that lends itself to more opportunities for children to be involved in music. I think sometimes we become very disjunct. Marching band guys do their thing, they get their state contest. The choral folks do their thing, they do their all-state, and we don't work together in a cooperative manner. The state of Kentucky is extremely advanced in the Music Educators Association. I would say maybe one of the most, if not the most, organized associations where all aspects are now a part of the Kentucky Music Educators Association. And that was a huge goal, and it's a monumental achievement, and the educators in that state are wonderful, dedicated folks.
So in addition to your leadership roles, you've also maintained an extensive calendar of guest conducting and clinician appearances, and you've been all over the world. And I remember I was in my first year in Olathe, Kansas, and I invited you to come in and be a guest conductor. And it was the December concert, the winter concert. And I had a kind of a contentious start when I started there. And I remember you were there and you turned around and you looked at the audience and you said, give this guy a chance and you're going to have a great program. And it basically what you told them that day. I mean, I still hear that in my head. And that was the thing that was the tipping point to give me time to get the program, in a good place. And so you've done this not only at my school, I'm sure you send this message everywhere you go. So as you look back, is there a common thread that you weave through all these professional activities when you're out there working serving as a clinician, serving as a guest conductor? Is there a message that you always want to send?
There is a message, and it's the same message that you have been the master of all these years. All those phenomenal performances of your bands in your school setting and at Vandercook College of Music. It's the same thing. We all search for the most enriching, enlightening, enjoyable, and expressive music that's possible. And when we go to do engagements, we need to present something that feeds the soul. And that's quality music that's expressive. And I use a different scale than most. I don't use a graded scale when I select literature or when I go out to guest conduct. I use the Miles Likett scale.
The Miles Likett scale.
I don't like it. I don't play it. Why would I want to consume a vegetable that is disgusting to me? I want to eat all of that. And, it's like fine dining. You start with an appetizer, you go to the entree, and then you clean the palate with sorbet, and then you have a delicious dessert. So that's the goal. It's getting students involved, and not just for wood and metal kind of trophies that melt and burn, but, it's the experience in life of loving music and wanting to absorb and continue to be involved in music. And maybe that's why we exist in schools. Maybe it's not just for the performance. Maybe it's not just for the education, but maybe it's for that love and experience that we teach so that their life will be benefited in the future. And I think about that as I do engagements and I conduct, the music is the key. It's the literature. It's what you've done.
Yeah, I always tell people, we read from articles and journals and magazines and stuff, and we've got so many wonderful colleagues in the profession, but the overriding theme that you hear is they say, don't play popular music with your kids. And my comment is, no, play unpopular music with your kids. That'll really attract them. And I said, in my life, the whole suite and Lincolnshire Posey and Air for Band. That's popular music in my life. So, I totally am with you on but I do like that Miles Like It scale. I'm going to use that. That's huh? Hey, so if you were a director, if you were giving advice to a director, some director came up to you and said, Dr. Miles, how do I develop a comprehensive quality school band program? What would you tell them?
In the current period or in a period without COVID?
Well, let's do it in a period without COVID.
In a period without COVID, I think that concert band is the core of the program. And we're talking about high school. There's no doubt about it. It's not marching band. It's not jazz band. It's not solo and ensemble. They're all hubs. They're all spokes of the hub. It's the concert band. And I honestly think that you make better music sitting down than standing up. And I think you make even better music sitting down rather than moving around. But it's fine to do all those other events and all their engagements. So I think concert band is the center. It is my perspective and my belief that concert band needs to be every day as a curriculum part of the academic unit of the year. That's me. I believe that. And I think the other experiences that we have in band are all wonderful co-curricular and maybe even curricular experiences that we do as an enhancement to the concert band program. That's marching band. I love marching band. I am addicted to it. I love it. I watch it. I listen. I still go to programs. Every single show right now in my part of the state I attend when possible. I love that. But that to me is not the academic core. So I would start with that. And I would encourage every single director to have solo and ensemble all year long. It's not solo and ensemble season. That's when students learn to develop their own individual expression, not through an ensemble, but their own individual expression. One of the things that Tom Dick and Al Jones and I did at Lafayette to get this parent organization going was to work out a rotation schedule all year long so that every single student in band played for at least one band parent meeting. And do you know what happened? Parents attended. Why did they attend? Because their son or daughter was going to play and the grandmas came. And so the parent association changed from being a money hub to being a love it hub about music and about their kids. And man, it's all the difference in the world. And I believe in jazz. I love jazz. And I think jazz ought to be a program, a part of the program. And I think the comprehensive part is really critical. And I also think there's another spoke to all of that, and that's the teaching of music. To me, my philosophy about teaching of music is it's a comprehensive philosophy. It's not just the performance. It's not the wood, the metal, the competitions. It's teaching about the music while we're performing quality literature. If a student goes through a band program and the next year they can't sing the tunes or the themes to the music that you performed on the field, that's a really strong hint, by the way, or in the seat, they can't even sing the themes. They don't even know who the composer was or the period or the style or anything about it. Man, I think we failed. It's important to become informed. That I learned from Harry Bejan. If you don't know the music, you can't teach the music.
Yep, you're right on. So you kind of alluded to this earlier, so you're back teaching now and you're teaching high school or middle school and you're in this middle of this COVID thing with distance learning. And how would you be approaching that?
I'm not a master of it. And to be very honest, Charlie, I haven't spent much time because I haven't had to deal with it. I've had several people ask me and I've referred them to others who have been very helpful, like in the NBA and the ASBDA and the CBDNA, all the associations have worked really hard in providing supplemental material. And so I'm not a master in that area, but in my mind, I don't think there's a whole lot different in virtual learning than in playing learning. Just maybe the large ensemble concept is different. But if you had units of study like teacher resource guides, and you had something that engaged a student learning about the music, they had listening experiences where they listened to the music, and they had the experiences of performing solos and even ensemble literature. And even now with Zoom and other forms of technology, if they could do some limited ensemble experience, I think that one could survive. I don't think one survives very well if the only thing that's emphasized is just the stuff in the music. I think that the performance is critical, but I think it's got to be more than just the individual performance to sustain us through this period. You know, while we're on that topic, I'll go off on a little soapbox here. It's a mystery to me right now why every child in the country isn't learning to play an instrument right now of some type. Now, I have to think about expression and art. What if every child had a song flute or a recorder or a harmonica or whatever that is, and they had a vent of expression? And what about if every child in our country had an expression of creative art? Instead of drilling all the facts and the number and the figures, how can we dull our society any more than suppressing them all the time with the technology computer stuff? We got to get to the creative soul part. And I think we do that with instruments. I'm going to continue, if I have time, with one more idea that just I thought of. What if every director in the country started to organize some kind of plan to help more kids have the availability of learning to play an instrument? I don't know how much you know of the influence or the area of where I live, but we have some great bands and great band programs. And you know, in my neighborhood, I have 3 people who gave me their instruments from their former children. And I took them to the middle schools and I said, I want to sponsor a student in this middle school and this middle school and this middle school. So at least where I live, in the last year or so, 3 new students are in band as a result of that instrument not collecting dust underneath a band. So what if nationwide right now, during all this pandemic time, we had a collection of instruments that are functional and clean that were made available to get kids going and playing and expressing themselves? What a difference it might be. I don't know what the music industry is doing right now in that area, but it is a mystery to me about how strong we could be in helping children cope with all of this. And I think life would be better for most all of us. Okay, that's my soapbox. Sorry.
I couldn't agree more, you know, and in this time of the pandemic, people have been cleaning out their houses and they've been giving stuff away. I know locally here, there's a organization called St. Vincent de Paul, and they have thrift shops and stuff like that. And for the past month, they said, we're not accepting any more donations because we don't have any place to put them.
Nice.
Right? So, I mean, getting instruments and passing them out, that's great. That's a great idea. Okay, a couple of final questions, Richard. Let's do some rapid fire answers here. Give me 3 of your favorite pieces of band music.
Okay, let me think about this for a second. Okay, I'm going to be biased with my list. Okay, this is on my like it scale. Incantation and Dance by John Barnes Chance. If you want to know why, I'll tell you. Frank Ticheli, Symphony No. 2, because it honors my mentor, James Croft, and I love the the final movement. It just fires up my thoughts of love and appreciation for Jim Croft. And I've always been a phenomenal fan and teacher of Paul Hindemith's Symphony for Band, the Symphony in B flat, because the first movement is a stellar example of sonata allegro form. And every single student should know how strong the form is and the structure, and how those melodies will haunt one's mind. So those are my three.
You got a favorite march?
I do have a favorite march. It's one that no one else will select. I love Gordon Jacobs' and Original Suite Movement 1.
Very cool. And who is your biggest inspiration in the band world?
Harry Beechen and Gary Smith, without a doubt. I've had so many wonderful folks, as we all have, but those folks helped me develop a better understanding of the highest level of music making and experiences.
You mentioned Dr. Croft at Florida State, and I know you got your doctorate there.
Yep.
What are your recollections of that time? Because that had a really profound impact on you, I know, and I didn't get to it earlier in the conversation, but let's just take a minute and talk about your experience at Florida State and what it meant to you.
Well, when I went to Florida State, it was part of the 30 years of my tenure at Morehead State. They allowed me to have a leave for 2 years, and the experience at Florida State with Jim Croft was great. I went to every single rehearsal that Jim Croft conducted with his Wind Symphony, every one. I followed all the scores. I wrote down every single word that he said about interpretation or little stories that he contributed to the ensemble for that entire period. The ultimate mentor, the ultimate person of great compassion and music making. What an ear. And he would tell great stories and be able to sing the expression. He knew the music inside, and he taught it from the inside out. And what a great, great person. I mean, it was phenomenal.
So if you had to do it all over again and you couldn't be a band director, what do you think you'd have become?
Nobody else is going to say this, I'm sure, in your interview process. I'd become a professional Boy Scout. Isn't that an unusual response?
And why is that?
I love scouting. Scouting and church were my life, and of course, music. I was an Eagle Scout. I earned the God and Country Award. I was in the Order of the Arrow. I had additional palms. All the things that come with the Scouts. But scouting helped shape my moral character, and it helped encourage me and teach me strong values in life. And my church did, my parents did, but I got to earn those experiences individually through scouting. And so being a part of the Scouting Association would have most likely been my next career, because it still engages in music and is so involved. So, unusual response, I know. I'd be a professional Boy Scout.
Richard, I just always love my time with you. I recall all the time we spent going to the Midwest Clinic and ducking out for dinner at Sukasa and all those great places in Chicago, and having the opportunity to chat with you on the podcast. Man, this warms my heart, and I'm so energized right now. I can't tell you how much you mean to me. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, buddy.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Richard Miles is a giant in our band director world. He has made such a difference. He truly lives his mantra, music feeds the soul. And his criteria for selecting a piece of band music to perform, the Miles Like It scale, is something that every director should steal. Richard is a professional's professional, and he is never one to take credit, and the first one to push others in the limelight. Richard Miles is a master teacher, and we owe him a lot. And now retired, Richard loves to fish. And I have no doubt that he will cast a big net in the water, as he has in the band director world. And I'll bet if there's a way to teach fish to play an instrument, Richard Miles is going to be leading that band. Well, that's it for Band Talk, episode 25. Next week, we'll be back with composer Michael Dougherty and a very inspiring conversation. Good luck as you begin your school year. This is Charlie Mangini saying thank you, and always, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. If you would like to send a question to Charlie or have a comment, please send an email to bandtalkcharlie@gmail.com. We hope you will let your colleagues, students, and friends know about Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to being with you again soon.